Pirate here says, Kaido saying no one cared after Luffy's last loss is mainly what makes me think the raid will fail, but if that happens, how will Oda make the next Beast Pirate defeats more climactic / definitive? First of all, yeah, no, so if you go back and read that chapter, I think 1013, I don't know, like, Oda literally has the villain say that this is a meaningless defeat. That is very literally the translation of what Kaido's saying. He's saying that this is a meaningless defeat. It will not affect morale. There's no point to this. I didn't do it right. Meaningless defeat. It was a literally off-screen defeat. I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know how much more meaningless Oda could have made that defeat. It was an off-screen defeat that Kaido says is a meaningless defeat that literally everybody doesn't give a shit about, like, one chapter later. And then Luffy's fine immediately afterwards. I don't know how to, like, you look at that versus Luffy's other defeats throughout the series, and the purpose of a defeat in the story is to shift things dramatically, right? Make things more serious, feel more hopeless, things like that, right? The way Oda wrote that defeat seemed very, very deliberately like he's just checking off a box. Give Luffy a second loss to Kaido. That's pretty much it, right? But Oda literally writes, it's a meaningless defeat. It's a pointless defeat. That's actually what the text says. Like, you can go back and read. I just don't. For people saying, like, Luffy losing was really dramatic, it's like, Oda literally wrote in that this is not a big deal. So, I don't know what else to say other than that, like, that's not the big defeat that things are heading towards for Luffy. He needs something heavier than that, right? Because it's literally written into the story that is the case. Now, second thing, which is how do you make the Beast Pirates defeats more climactic / definitive, is pretty simple, which is that the Beast Pirates defeats so far were not climactic and definitive, so literally anything would be better, right? Page 1, ulti, those weren't fights, right? Frankie versus Sasaki, that was literally like 10 pages of just stuff flying back and forth, done. That's not I don't think anyone thinks Frankie versus Sasaki was a particularly good fight. Jinbei versus Who's Who is the definition of anticlimactic, as you can go back and the vast consensus was that, oh, obviously the fight isn't over, it's going to continue in the next chapter, and then it didn't, which means that it's by definition of the word anticlimactic. Same thing with Sanji. There are Twitter polls that you can go back and look at, and Twitter polls that I actually conducted. Is this fight over? Most people voted no. Then it was over the very next chapter, right? So that means it was anticlimactic. So all of the Beast Pirates fights, like, this isn't really me, like, I'm not having to spin anything here. You can kind of just go back and look at the opinions after each fight, and each fight, the opinion was, oh, it's not over, it can't be over that easily, and then it turned out to be over, which means that the fights were written anticlimactically, which means any fight would pretty much top that, right? So it's not so much how will Oda make the next Beast Pirate fights more climactic, it's like he just has to make them climactic, as opposed to the current fights.